Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to something else. Something else, Daddy.
This is Nickel Matara, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Arya.
I'm shutting your door.
Welcome. Episode number 252 of Something Else. Feast your ear holes in this week's episode as we take a look at NWA Total Nonstop Action from December the 10th, 2003. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the abyss to my raven. It's Cyndi. Cyndi, how the hell are you doing today?
It feels good with that intro. Abyss is one of the most underrated workers of the 2000s.
See, I think you and I are going to have some debate later on today, especially with the finish of that match.
Oh, no. I'm not talking about the... We'll talk about the finish. I think both of us are going to be on the same page that it was dog shit.
Oh, Lord. I mean, here's the thing. Like, one of the complaints a lot of people have about modern day wrestling is that the rules are ignored until they have to not be ignored. You know what I mean? Like, you don't get DQs in a lot of non-WWE companies. Basically, it's a lawless land where anything goes, and, the referee looks like an imbecile each and every match. And then the problem is, once in a while, rules are enforced, and it makes no sense. And because they hadn't been enforced not just for the entire show, but the entire match up until that point, everyone looks like a fucking idiot because why are the rules now being enforced all of a sudden? And we had this a couple weeks ago where, there were two matches on the fucking show where there was interference in front of the referee and nothing happened, but then the second person interfered, and the second person interfering caused a no contest in two different matches. And then we have not even similar stuff happen this week. We have similar finishes happen this week. And we have zero no
it's like
contest.
If Russo never left.
Say that. Like, and that's the thing, is like it leads into nowadays. And I was listening to the Brian Vinny show because they've been doing Impact from 2005 in the last few weeks. And like they keep talking about how TNA is a lot like AEW nowadays. And for better or worse, it's true. Because you watch AEW and the referee, generally speaking, is ignored and inconsequential until the absolute moment when they have to be involved.
Yeah, it's like it's too overly. I know there's a lot of complaints also about how wrestling is too overly choreographed nowadays. And whether it be the moves done in the ring, you know what, whatever, I get it. But the refs aren't supposed to be, they're supposed to be a neutral party to everything. Like, I know refs back in the day they were supposed to be dictated by commissions, like the state athletic commissions and stuff like that, or governing bodies like the NWA or AWA. Nowadays they're part of the show.
Jim Corderas talked about in his book that when he started in 86, 87, like Madison Square Garden, there were referees assigned by the commission who were not smartened up by the boys in the back. It wasn't until around that time when they would be hiring their own referees that it wasn't just a commission thing. And of course, the problem with commission referees is that, you don't know the finish, they fuck up the finish. That kind of thing. Um, but yeah. Anyway, we'll complain about it later. So let's dive in here. And before we dive too far in, we'd like to tell you what else is happening in TNA business outside of, what we see on the show. Now, we got some news here for you that's going to directly impact TNA in the next, 4 to 6 weeks. Survivor Pearl Islands ended this week with John Dalton finishing third. Dalton on the Survivor Reunion show said that his goal was to go to WWE and was disappointed that he hadn't heard back from them yet. Dave Meltzer said that TNA should reach out to him for the publicity if WWE doesn't hire him. Well, we now know who to blame for Johnny Fairplay, don't we?
Yep. But I'm not going to put the entire blame on Johnny Fairplay.
I did. I blame Dave.
We will talk about. Well, okay, two people we could blame. One, Dave. Two, I mean, this isn't Fairplay's first foray into pro wrestling. I mean, he was a manager and he was a string being wrestler, earlier than that.
Indeed.
So I don't have a problem with him getting involved. When it comes to TNA and how he's going to be used, I have a problem with the how he gets involved. And that is to blame on Dutch, Jarrett.
Oh, God, no. Nope. Keep going.
Dixie.
There you go. Dixie's the one that hired him. And especially because we'll get to it. He is a big deal on this show for like a month and then disappears. And the problem is, A, Dixie likes him, and B, they are paying him six figures. I forget the amount. I saw an interview with him once where he said he got a six-figure salary with benefits for a year. And then when it was up, Dixie re-signed him for a second year. And it was like he's like total on camera for 2 years. He may have been on TV for like 45 minutes. And got paid a very nice salary to be on the show for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, we talked about this during our Best Damn shows. You mentioned it that he got paid for his salary. $150,000 a year.
It was something like that, yeah. And it's so
he got paid $300,000 total.
Yeah, when the boss lady is like, we need to, find a way to use him. It's like I can't blame Dutch. I can't blame Dusty, who, I blame Dusty for a lot of shit that we'll get to eventually, but I don't blame him for the Johnny Fairplay shit. Let's see. Apparently, $350,000 total for his 2 years in the company. Let's see here. Apparently, there's some debate. So Johnny Fairplay says, I signed a $150,000 contract with TNA Wrestling for a year. I ended up making 8 appearances for 40 minutes. Then I signed a second contract and they didn't use me. So I'd like to thank them for $300,000 for 40 minutes worth of work. So.
And I can understand why WWE didn't pick up Johnny Fairplay, because I'll say this, if the popularity of Survivor happened 10 years later, how Survivor was still huge in their 7th season. Let's say it was 2013. Vince, he says that.
Go ahead.
Oh, WWE in 2013 were desperate for star fucking.
The thing is,
And you
though, it's
have the
with
most hated villain in TV saying, I'll do that.
the thing
Vince
is
is
though,
like,
it's like
God damn.
Survivor fame really means nothing, and it gets proven over and over again over the years. In that, if you're a star on Survivor, it's a very quickly fading star. And even if you're somebody who gets brought back for 7 or 8 seasons, like someone like Suri, who's on Survivor, I think 4 times, and I think she's going to be back for Survivor 50. Outside of the 12 weeks that she's on Survivor, she's not a star. But the 12 weeks that she's on Survivor, it's like, oh my God, it's Suri. Everybody loves Suri. But outside of the show, you have no idea what the fuck Suri does. Like Suri getting married is not news. What Suri does is not news. So if Suri, like nobody's gonna bring in Suri to capitalize on her Survivor popularity. And this is something that at least WWE understood because unless I'm forgetting somebody, WWE never brought in anybody off of Survivor. While TNA, they bring in Johnny Fairplay. They tried to bring in that big fireman guy from the first time they did fans versus favorites. They brought in Jenna Maraska. They not brought in Jenna Maraska. They brought in Jenna Maraska like 6 years after she won. Like, any fame you could possibly have off Survivor, you have none 6 years later. But it's like
Right.
WWE, like, WWE probably could have made a few bucks, like, like the first year with Sue and Kelly Wigglesworth. Like, they probably could have made a few bucks doing something with them. But they were smart enough to know that it wasn't worth it. You know, like Russell Hands could have been a fucking pro wrestling manager, but A, he made way too much fucking money in his real job to, go work in wrestling. But B, it's like, what are you going to use him for? Because, it wouldn't translate. But
Right.
whatever. So that's our Survivor news for the week. We'll have more coming up, I'm sure. Elsewhere, the relationship between TNA and AAA is already strained. Michael Shane and David Young have not yet been paid for their bookings on November 28th. I'm sorry, November 29th. And AAA has not shared the footage from the show, which features Shane wrestling in front of 18,000 people, and thus would make him look like a big star. We'll see if that comes up anytime soon. We this show, or at least this house show, has a couple returns this week, and one of which was primetime Elix Skipper, because after he did not get any kind of offer from WWE, Skipper signed his 2-year contract with TNA and returned on Explosion this week. Now, Cindy, do you remember a few months ago when the red shirts took on the black shirts and Rick Santel got heaved up the ramp and injured his shoulder?
Yeah, because he was also shown in the autopsy of X's senton.
There you go. So apparently, not only did he legitimately separate his shoulder, but TNA, in what is going to be one of those things we say a lot about TNA over the next decade, TNA will not pay his medical bills. Instead, an auction has been set up by the wrestlers, including Piper, selling memorabilia to try to raise money to pay Rick Santel's medical bills, which is a real scummy thing. Because, like, you can argue the Conan thing, because Conan, like, a lot of the reason why he was injured happened before he was in TNA. It's like Superstar Billy
Or when he
Graham
was in
blaming Vince
Mexico.
McMahon. But the point is, before he's in TNA, it's like when Superstar Billy Graham tried saying that Vince McMahon is the reason why he was on steroids. It's like one has nothing to do with the other. But like in this case, Rick Santel got injured on a TNA show, do it for a TNA booking. This was not a pre-existing condition, and TNA is refusing to pay for his medical bills. And it gets even funnier because later on, when Piper does his interview, he talks about how TNA is the first company to offer its wrestlers health insurance, which is technically true for the people who were signed to full-time contracts, which Rick Santel was not signed to any such thing. Yeah.
Besides, why would you sign Santel? He's probably a good guy, but what use would you have of Santel besides job duties?
That's not the point. The point is they booked him. He got injured in their ring by one of their wrestlers. There is a sense of, ownership that it's up to them, that they should be paying that bill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll get some more ranting in later, but for now, on to the actual show. The show started with an immemorial graphic for Jerry Tweet, aka Malice, aka The Wall, who passed away on December 6, 2003. I don't even say he was one of the big what ifs, because he went through everywhere in a really short amount of time. He was in WCW, of course, as The Wall. When WWE bought WCW, he was in HWA, I think, and never got called up. And then he was in TNA at the very beginning, looking radically different. And I guess he had a really bad drug problem and he could not get it under control.
No. Not only that, he had a good, solid run in, I think it's All Japan. So if he got himself clean, my best guess would be he would have been a really solid Gaijin for him. But it was the environment. How many people who wrestled in the late 90s or got started in the late 90s are gone because of the nasty drug culture that not just WECW, but all companies at that time.
After the opening video package, we went to the heel locker room for a meeting at 6:22 Central Time, where Planet Jarrett made a victim list, which included everyone Jarrett has basically fought while here in TNA, and that included the Tennessee Titans and Hulk Hogan. Simon and Swinger were notably absent from this meeting, and Gilberti said that they'll be here, and they talked about Piper being here tonight. Then we fast forwarded to the babyface locker room at 6:45 Central Time, where Eric Watts was late for his meeting, much to everyone's chagrin. Chris Harris wanted to know who Roddy Piper was bringing, and Watts had no idea, which pissed everybody off. AJ decided to leave the meeting to focus on Jeff Jarrett. Watts said tonight they will have some surprises.
I want to talk about this victim list.
Knock yourself
because
out.
he talked about all the people that he booted out of TNA: Hogan, Hart, Duggan, Rick Steiner, Dusty Rhodes. He brings up Toby Keith and he complains about his latest video, and the video in question is, according to the dates, "I Love This Bar," which was actually a decent video, and the song's pretty good. Vince Russo and the Tennessee Titans, which you referenced. Fun fact, guess their record for that year.
2003?
Yeah, the 2003 season.
10-6.
12-4, and quarterback Steve McNair was co-MVP of the league that year.
Mm-hmm.
And the team that eliminated them from the playoffs was everybody's most hated team of the past 25 years, the New England Patriots.
Yeah, Melon Farmer.
Yeah. So I want to make a correction on last week's show.
Okay.
I said about the first match, which is Kid Cash versus Don Harris, that they would find a way to get out of this by having it be mainly storyline. I'd like to apologize for I was wrong, because this match lasted 5 minutes, which is 5 minutes longer than it should have.
I have thrown a brick in your direction. It will arrive shortly, I'm sure. So, as Don Harris was walking to the ring for the opening match, he was attacked by red shirt security. Tenay and West weren't even pretending that this was something we should be surprised by, which makes Don Harris a dumb babyface. And then to make Don Harris an even dumber babyface, while laying on his back, he agreed that the match should begin. And Don West began a show. This was a poor show for poor Don West. He started talking about how because Harris is so much bigger and muscular than Kid Cash, that Don Harris should have no problem standing up while Cash is punching and kicking him, completely burying the idea that Kid Cash could possibly be getting an offense on Don Harris. Outside the ring, Cash went for the chair to the face, but Harris caught it. Why didn't anyone else think of that? The finish saw the red shirts run back in and distract the referee, so Jarrett could sneak in and break a guitar over Don's head for the win. This was crap. 1.0 out of 10.
1.0 out of 10, exactly right. This would have been better how I thought it was going to go down. You know what? Kid Cash comes out, Don Harris comes out, and red shirts just stomp them. Stomp them, do whatever the hell their finisher is, which do we even have a finisher for the red shirts?
I don't know. You said there was a finish.
We'll just say a spike pile driver before the bell rings, and they force the ref to ring the bell. Kid Cash gets the pin, 1, 2, 3. Then Jarrett comes out, El Kabong, and we get this stupid with us or against us crap.
So Jeff Jarrett tells us that if you're with him, then you get rewarded. And if you're against him, you get punished. Now, during this promo, the cameraman is zooming in. We have a one shot of Jeff Jarrett. Nobody else is in the camera except Jeff Jarrett. We zoom out to where the red shirts and Kid Cash are all stomping and kicking Don Harris. If I'm Don Harris, I'm like, dude, you're not even showing me get beat up. What is the point of me being beaten up if we're not even airing it on the television? So
Isn't
AJ
this also
Styles
why Don Harris actually became part of the production team?
Couldn't have made it any worse. AJ Styles ran in with a chair and took out all four heels. As the heels all tried to get back into the ring, Roddy Piper's music played. And through the back door where SCX used to come from, the Nashville Pipe and Drum Band began playing through the crowd, which ran off the heels. I know if I'm a big scary monster, I'm afraid of the guy in a kilt hitting a drum. Suddenly, the lights went out because TNA forgot to pay the bill this week, and shock of shock, when they came back on, Roddy Piper was walking to the ring. And that was the highlight of this segment, was Roddy Piper walking to the ring. Unfortunately...
Yeah, and then it goes downhill fast.
So Roddy Piper takes a microphone, and the first thing he did was make a joke about Michael Jackson only wanting to have sex with children, and then said this made Don Callis sad. I would like to point out that it did not make Don Callis sad because of the pedophilia. It made Don Callis sad because Don Callis is gay and wanted to have sex with Michael Jackson. Someone in the crowd held up a sign that says "Smells like WCW," which I imagine was not meant to be complimentary. And
No, it
then
wasn't, because this felt like awful Russo-rific 2000 promo bullshit.
So in other words, 2003 TNA bullshit. So
Yeah.
Piper tells Jarrett that he is the only guy that Hogan never beat. And to be fair, I guess it was not Hogan that beat Piper at Judgment Day. It was, in fact, Mr. America. So, no proof on that old Hogan beating Piper thing. Jarrett said he's going to take out Piper tonight when funky music began playing and D'Lo Brown hit the ring. And those two, along with AJ, was still out there, took out the four heels. It is a bad night, apparently, to be the red shirt security. After the fighting was done, Eric Watts ran in. Watts said if he's going to go out, he's going to go out with a bang. And he booked Jarrett and a partner versus AJ Styles and D'Lo Brown with Roddy Piper as the equalizer, whatever that means. I noted, are we even going to mention that AJ and D'Lo were partners like 8 months ago before we broke up and AJ turned heel? It turns out, believe it or not, yes, they're going to bring that up throughout the show. So 1 point for TNA this week. Anyway,
this was a bad promo.
It's one of those things that, like, the people who aren't involved in actually having to book and write the show want Piper to be on the show because he's a big star, and I get that. The problem is because he can't wrestle and his promos are the shits, there's only so much you can do with the guy. You know? And it's like, this was a real convoluted way to make a tag team match. I'm happy D'Lo is back. We knew he'd be back soon-ish. Yeah, like, this was a weird way to book a tag match, and it's going to get weirder throughout the show because they said Jeff Jarrett has to pick a partner, and he spends the whole show complaining about who he's going to possibly find to be his tag team partner. I'm like, dude, you have a fucking stable of like 6 guys right now. Turn to one of them and say, hey, you're going to be my partner.
Spoiler alert, that's exactly what he does.
Yes. We'll get to it. It's Kid Cash. Like, literally, Watts could have just said, Kid Cash, he weaseled his way out of having a real match with Don Harris today. So we're going to put you in the main event with Jeff Jarrett, against AJ and D'Lo. And it would have made perfect sense because Kid Cash cost AJ the title last week. So it's not like it would have come completely out of nowhere to just say that. Instead, we had this, and I guess Piper being at ringside is better than Watts being at ringside again, but who knows?
Yeah. But that doesn't stop Watts from appearing after the show, after the main event. So we got Hudson in the back with America's Most Wanted. Essentially, the promo talks about how they're the best of the business and the rightful owners of the tag titles, and how they've been struggling for 4 months not being able to have the tag titles.
Yeah, Hudson's only on the show 6 times this week.
Yeah, but he makes the most of it.
Yes. We then go to the ring for our first match, I said our first match. It's not our first match. It's our second match, our first real match. The first match anyone would want to see. X Division champion Michael Shane with Tracy versus Christopher Daniels. Now, eagle-eared listeners might notice that Christopher Daniels is a lot of things, but one thing he is not is he is not low-key, who won a triple threat number 1 contenders match last week. However, if you recall, also Daniels attacked Low Ki after the match and beat him up with a chair backstage. In reality, as we mentioned, Low Ki had a Japanese tour this week, which is why they did the injury angle. Which ultimately, like, why though? Like, I get, they wanted to do this match this week, but like they could have just said Low Ki wins the title match and he's going to get it in 2 weeks. Because spoiler, he's going to get it next week. They could have had something else happen in this match. I'm not sure uh, they could have fucking had Daniels versus Sabin, on this show or something.
Yeah.
And Michael Shane could have taken on fucking Elix Skipper or something. I hear he's backstage. Oh well.
Yeah, he could
Anyway,
work 2 matches.
this was a match between two heels, so the fans primarily didn't know who to react to. A handful of fans chanted Fallen Angel, and a couple others chanted Sucks, but it didn't pick up through the crowd. Daniels used a moonsault to the leg and knee. Now, he was a little bit off because he was meaning to do the moonsault to, the stomach. However, this is wrestling parlance. So, if Daniels does a moonsault to the stomach and Shane got his knees up, it would only hurt Christopher Daniels. However, if Christopher Daniels does a moonsault to Shane's knees, then it only hurts Shane. So figure that out. They went outside the ring. Shane threw Daniels into the ring steps, which busted Daniels wide open. Apparently, this was, a shoot spot. Daniels is a really good worker. He did not really miss the steps on this one, and he was busted open hard way here. And it's funny because, like, as I was watching this, I'm like, I do not remember Daniels bleeding a whole lot in his career. He was never somebody who had to do, the hardcore extreme matches to get over. And so, like,
No.
I remember him wrestling LAX and LAX busting him open, but that's about it.
Yeah, and
Tracy
we were talking about this on Facebook because we were discussing it, whether it was a blade spot or whether it was hard way, and neither one of us knew. You said you figured it out, and it was hard way, so 1.0 on the mood meter, I guess, because it gushed pretty darn good for the first minute or so.
He was wearing the crimson mask here, people. If you've ever wanted to see poor Chris Daniels bleeding, now is your chance. Tracy used the flying vagina, but Shane missed a super kick. Daniels put on the Nagata lock of all things, which, gotta say, it might be the first time I ever saw him do that. Tracy got on the apron to say hi to the referee, so Daniels pulled her pants down and went for an angel's wings, but Shane super kicked him to prevent his manager from being deflated. Shane got a chain, but Sabin ran down and decked Shane, so Daniels got it and KO'd Shane. Unfortunately for the Fallen Angel, the referee turned around at that moment and caught him, disqualifying Christopher Daniels. This despite the fact that the referee watched Tracy interfere multiple times on the show. Multiple times in the match, pardon me. After the match, Daniels was pissed at Sabin. I would be too, since DQs don't exist in TNA, and when they do, somehow Sabin is always involved. I gave them. I still enjoyed
Sabin
the match.
Also cost.
It was the Frankie Kazarian Michael Shane X Division title match. No, it was Sabin and whatchamacallit. Sabin
Kazarian.
versus and no, Sabin versus Shane, and Kazarian interfered for the DQ. Or whatever fucking happened.
I was thinking
there was a bunch of bullshit finishes involving Chris Sabin, Michael Shane, and Frankie Kazarian there for a couple of weeks.
And that's how we got Ultimate X.
Yes. I gave this match a 6.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 6 out of 10. Also, the bad thing about Tracy's pants, they weren't pulled down. They were ripped. They were ripped off.
I know that we had a wardrobe change before her next appearance. So, and I figured she was so embarrassed that those pants got pulled down by poor Christopher Daniels that she couldn't wear them again. Michael Shane.
And
Wow. I wonder if I hope Michael Shane would have been as a commentator or as a backstage announcer. Maybe Michael
not
Shane
good.
has who you don't know that. I know you're not a fan of Michael Shane, but he could have been a great backstage announcer. But instead of Michael Shane doing backstage commentary, Scott Hudson was now with 3 Live Crew. And Scott Hudson notes that 3 Live Crew, as tag team champions, are not starting with the teams on the bottom rung. It's like, why would they be wrestling the teams on the bottom if they're the tag team champions? They should only be defending against the top teams. Or am I greatly overthinking this? So
you're kind of
Conan
overthinking this because let's face it, it's TNA. The bottom teams are the top teams. There's only four regular teams in that division.
Well, they might be defending against Rick Santel and Chris Vaughn if TNA would pay for his fucking shoulder surgery.
I mean, who are the four? No, 5 teams. Sorry, 6.
The Gathering.
There's 6 tag teams.
The Gathering, the Red Shirts, these two, Simon and Swinger, and who the hell else?
Gilberti and
Rick
Young.
Santel and Chris Vaughn. Oh yeah, who kind of count, especially since we got rid of ECMO. Because who wants ECMO on the show? So let's see here. Conan and BG talk about respecting AMW. Glenn Gilberti and David Young walked up to recruit 3 Live Crew for Planet Jarrett. Simon and Swinger finally showed up. He walked in and said for Glenn to stop talking for them, which shows that Simon Diamond was not listening, because if he had been listening, he would have known that Gilberti was not talking about them. BG told them to go discuss gay marriage and left. This show is a boon to the LGBT community this week. Gilberti wanted to know why they weren't at the meeting, which Simon and Swinger didn't know about. David Young claimed that he told them about the meeting and did it in such a smarmy way that you knew he didn't actually tell them about it. And Swinger told Gilberti he had to decide between Jarrett and them. Yeah.
And we got a repeat of the "Do you think I'm stupid" bit from yesterday, but not as good.
By yesterday, I mean last week.
Yeah, you know what I meant.
And somebody out there might think we recorded this week's show the day after last week's show, which would not be the first time we've done that.
But we're not. We're live.
Live, pal. No matter what time you're listening to this, if you're listening to this show at 3:27 a.m., we are doing it live, regardless of what it looks like on the bottom there, where you're looking at the little clock ticker gimmick that tells you how much longer is left in the program. This interview just awkwardly ended because they didn't really end the promo. Instead, they just moved directly into the video for the tag team title match, which was the next match. 3 Live Crew with Conan versus America's Most Wanted. Storm went for tornado DDT on BG, but BG blocked it and made Storm fall on his face. The problem with that is BG pretty much took the same bump he would have taken if he just took the DDT. Simon and Swinger came out to watch the match for the ramp. BG broke up a Harris cover on Truth, and the announcers put over what the tag team specialist that BG is. Because no one would be smart enough to just break up a cover. David Young came out to order Simon and Swinger to the back, so Truth did a dive onto Simon and Swinger, while Storm did a dive onto Young. In the ring, Rudy Charles got squished in the corner. Harris put BG in the sharpshooter. Ring the damn bell! Instead, Gilberti ran in and hit Harris with a chair. Truth got in the ring and pinned Harris with an axe kick. It's probably not important to figure out who the legal men in the match were at this point. Not the last time I'll say that on this show.
Yeah, and by the way, did you see that ref bump? That had to be one of the weakest ref bumps we have seen in a while. Like, BG barely touched him.
be fair, we do try to not actually murder Rudy Charles, no matter how bad he is at his job. I this was not the AMW miracle worker thing, especially since Truth. I don't know if he was hurt or whatever, but BG took most of this match. Truth was barely in there for the finish, and I gave this match a 4.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 4.0 out of 10. I wasn't charitable enough to give it a 0.5. It just seemed like this match was meh until it ended. So I gave it a meh score of 4 out of 10.
Scott Hudson was now with Jeff Jarrett, demanding to know who his partner was. Jarrett said that he cannot stand people who don't play by the rules and don't play fair. You see, it's funny because Jeff Jarrett's a heel and he doesn't play by the rules and he doesn't play fair. I hope everyone is still laughing over that.
Let me ask the non-studio audience, are you laughing at that? No? Good. You shouldn't, because it sucks.
Ha ha. So Don Callis ran in and said that Jeff Jarrett doesn't need a partner. So Jeff Jarrett gripped him up and threw him back in the locker room and told Hudson that he'd have a partner. And this is where I wrote, he literally has a gang of people at his beck and call. How is this difficult?
I have no idea. It would have been much easier just to say, have Kid Cash walk around and say, hey, Cash, you're working with me. And Kid Cash is like, all right, boss.
But by the way, to spoil the fact that we're reviewing this on Saturday night, do you care if I give a collision kind of spoiler?
Yeah, go ahead.
Darby All In is all out of the Continental Classic officially, replaced by Jungle Jack Perry.
Well, I didn't realize that his match with Kevin, because Darby Allin wrestled Kevin Knight.
Yes, he did.
He must have got injured during then.
He apparently hurt his neck. And considering the shit that Darby Allin does, and we talked about this in wrestling. I talked about this on the site formerly known as angrymarks.com last week during our ECW on TNN recap. These people get injured on the silliest, most simple of things. Like Rob Van Dam just broke his ankle, or broke his leg, excuse me. And he broke his leg doing a baseball slide. Like, of all the things that Rob Van Dam does that are crazy and spectacular and look like they're going to hurt you, he did a baseball slide and got hurt. And no one seems to know where in that match Darby got hurt, but there was no obvious, oh my God, the guy broke his neck spot in that match.
I didn't see it either. Yeah. Oh God, this next match.
Oh, so you're not, you don't want to talk about someone off screen asked CM Punk and Julio De Niro about what Raven said about the three of them not teaming up again. Punk and Julio disagreed with that sentiment. And as we'll learn by the end of this show, there's a reason why they don't believe Raven when Raven keeps saying that.
Well, granted, this was recorded for Explosion, and as you've noted, Explosion doesn't exist. When it does exist, only when it doesn't.
It was the one thing that this renewed emphasis on Explosion has done is that unless I'm missing something, we're not getting the weekly enhancement match on this show pretty much anymore. I think the last one we had Abyss versus Shark Boy a few weeks ago, but it used to be a weekly thing where somewhere, in the middle of the first hour we'd get a 3-minute enhancement match, and we don't get that anymore.
Right, because Explosion is pretty much the home for it. It's where they'll wrestle some local Nashville or Memphis job guy. Um,
Well,
working like
the
the
reason
Burt Prentice territories.
the reason also for that is because it's been established now with the name indie wrestlers that TNA won't pay for people to come in for tryouts. So you have to fly yourself in and work for free. And why fucking do that? I get it's a Wednesday and most indies don't run on Wednesdays, but still, you have to fly yourself in and not get paid in addition to paying for your hotel room, paying for gas, and all that shit. It's like it's not worth it. So yeah, you're gonna get Explosion full of the Nashville and Memphis local guys at this point.
And a year later, it'll be full of the Florida indie guys.
Yes, which is when Jarrell Clark and Mikey Batts and um oh my God, who was that fucking guy that the pedophile sex offender
Jason
who owned
Rance.
Chase and Rants? I think he's all over the show.
Yeah, he is. And he would become one of the mainstays of the Ring of Honor offshoot, Full Impact Pro.
Well, we might have to insert the same rule that we apply for Buck Zumhoff on the Tuesday show. Anything with Chase and Ranson gets automatically fast forwarded. Um, and if
We
somehow Chase and
might have
Rance
a
is in the
couple of
main event,
matches in 2004 where that will happen.
well, if Chase and Rance is in the main event, then we won't watch the main event that week. But I have hopes that Chase and Rance is never in a TNA main event, no matter how low things go.
We'll
Anywho, so
probably
we
be
got Red.
skipping over some multi-man X Division matches then, but that'll be it.
So, anywho, we then go to the ring for Red Shirt Security versus The Gathering. Now, Cyndi, riddle me this. Red Shirt Security has been on the show for about 6 months or so. What gear do they wear to the ring? What is Red Shirt Security's wrestling gear?
A red shirt with black pants.
Has it ever been anything other than a red shirt with black pants?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, great. CM Punk, fully aware that this match was booked a week in advance, for some reason wore red to the ring. A red jacket, specifically. But seriously, like, I get shit happens, especially on indie shows where like guys don't talk to each other and they end up wearing similar gear. Like, Punk knew a week in advance he's wrestling the fucking red shirts. Leave your red jacket at home. Or in the back at least. But yeah. So the red shirts get the heat on the red shirt, while we saw footage of Raven and Abyss being moody, getting ready for their match later. This was pretty much a one-sided ass kicking before the hot tag, during the heat, and once the hot tag happened. Punk got no offense. He and Julio ran to the ring and immediately got their asses kicked. One thing I will say, I know we've given the red shirts a lot of shit, and we will give them a lot of shit over the year or however long they're here for. However, one thing I like, Northcutt covered Punk, and like you could tell Northcutt was studying his William Regal tapes, which is probably the only time you'll ever hear me compare Kevin Northcutt to William Regal. Because when Kevin Northcutt made the cover on Punk, he did the William Regal thing where he jammed the forearm in and, you know, moved it around and twisted his forearm into Punk's face. And it was really neat. And I like that little thing there. Like we said, Julio got the hot tag, which was not just me being a smart mark. That's literally what Tenay called it when he got the tag. Northcutt went for a power bomb, but Julio rolled through the sunset flip for the pin. If it wasn't for the opener, this I think would have been the weakest match on the show. I gave it a 3.0 out of 10. And if Cyndi takes
Man,
herself off mute, she'll tell us what she thinks about the match.
we're lined up tonight, 3 out of 10. Like this was I would compare the way this match was booked as the enhancement match, except the lower card guy wins. Granted, in the pecking order of Planet Jarrett, redshirt security is probably higher than, say, David Young, but they're still
You're
pretty
really
low.
setting the bar. You're really setting the bar high there, aren't you?
Well,
They're
if I was
better than
gonna,
David Young.
well, they're higher in the pecking order than David Young. I mean, if I was to do the pecking order, it would be Jarrett, Abyss, Kid Cash, Gilberti, Redshirt Security, David Young.
I feel like we're missing somebody, but I guess we aren't. At least yet, anyway. I guess Callis is out there 50 times, but he doesn't really count.
Right, he's not a wrestler, so he doesn't count.
He's not a superstar. Remember when they said that about Machine Gun Kelly when Kevin Owens powerbombed him off the stage? He's not a superstar. Like I get what they mean, but this is one of those times you just say the word wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so Scott Hudson is now with the new franchise, asking them what side they're on. Douglas said they'll make this decision on their own. Douglas began randomly talking about Chris Sabin and was the first person to mention that Ultimate X2 was on January 7th. Thank you to Shane Douglas for breaking the news. Anyway, apparently the reason why he's randomly talking about Chris Sabin is because he's going to wrestle Chris Sabin on this show. Somebody decided that was a good idea.
I mean, if you're gonna build up Sabin to conceivably take the title off of Michael Shane and have it be an Ultimate X2, wouldn't it make sense to beat Shane Douglas to beat the mentor, or at least beat somebody in the new franchise?
That works if you're setting it up for a singles match. This is
True.
just setting it up for an Ultimate X match. So if you want to set that up, Chris Sabin should be beating an X Division guy. Like, I don't know why I can't think of anybody else, and I've mentioned him already on this show, but where the hell's Elix Skipper at? They could have
Who
had
the
him on
hell's
the
Shark
pay-per-view
Boy?
doing a job. Like, and I guess that's part of the issue. We just had that 8-man battle royal a few weeks ago, and it's like outside of we're Sanjay. I mean, I guess Sabin and Sanjay are friends or whatever, but Sabin could have wrestled Sanjay. But if you remember that battle royal from a few weeks ago, you had the clear line between the people getting the push and the people in for 1 week only.
Right. Who is
And
that guy who took the place of? No, wait. Sanjay took the place of Sabin. Who was the guy who finished fifth? Who we'll later find out will be a part of another Jarrett protection group called the Elite Guard.
wasn't Chad Collier, was it?
Yeah, Chad Collier. He could wrestle Sabin because
Uh,
that was going to be the original match, Sabin versus Chad Collier.
until he quote unquote got injured.
Yeah.
So injured that he was back before the tournament even ended, which is always a pet peeve of mine.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Let's see. Let's just go back in time a little bit. It was what, November 5th, I think, right? Yeah. So X won a battle royal in 10 minutes 17 seconds. Also in the match were Chad Collier, Christopher Daniels, Sanjay Dutt, Low-Key, Chris Sabin, Shark Boy, and Johnny Storm. Well, I just named 3 or 4 people that could have been in this, well, on this show or next week's show, losing matches to people who are going to be in Ultimate X, who are X Division wrestlers. But who needs that, right?
Right.
So we got a video talking about the making of the Babes of TNA calendar. And first of all, as we mentioned last week, they only have 2 real women on the show, Tracy and Trinity. And second, this video I thought was so poorly put together, I had zero interest in seeing a calendar of these women in what I'm assuming are swimsuits.
Yeah, they're swimsuits.
It was that way, like they had that Tracy Brooks video a few weeks ago that was like darkly lit and it was tried to be artistic. and it was like trying to be sexy, and
And
it
the
really
blue
wasn't.
hue, yeah.
And it's like this was filmed very similarly, and this commercial did not make me want to pay for a calendar of pretty women. So we get Shane Douglas with Tracy versus Chris Sabin. I know Tracy changed her entire outfit, and apparently if she had a bit of a wardrobe malfunction, that would explain it. And the good news this week is that Shane and Shane are wrestling separate matches, so we don't have to sit here and have that annoying thing happen until the finish of this match. But anyway, remember like 2 minutes ago when Shane Douglas said that Ultimate X2 was on January 7th? Apparently nobody clued in Mike Tenay because he talked about how Sabin made the challenge for Ultimate X2 last week. Shane beat on Sabin at the bell and mockingly screamed, "Hail Sabin" at the crowd. He was less amused when Sabin kicked him in the back of the head. Now, Tenay, I'm not going to sit here and claim Mike Tenay is full of shit, but Mike Tenay is full of shit because he talks about how Sabin was born in 1982, which honestly I didn't bother looking up, but it sounds right, so I'm going to say that it's true. And then he says that when Sabin was 8 months old, Douglas had his first match in 1982 where he got paid $14.50 to wrestle a barbed wire match. Now, considering the fact that Shane Douglas was training with Mick Foley at Dominic DeNucci School in 1985 and 1986, I have a hard time believing that he had a barbed wire match in 1982.
Yeah, I think Shane Douglas fed Tenay some false information there and see if he'd regurgitate it.
For the second time tonight, Tracy tried to get a Shane involved, but failed once again. Shane 2.0 ran down and got knocked off the apron. Tracy tried interfering, but Shane 1.0 squashed her in the corner. It is a really bad night to be Tracy Brooks. Sabin rolled Douglas up for the pin. Then, to show how low of a bar I have for Shane Douglas singles matches, since Douglas didn't vomit during this match, I call it a success. 3.5 out of 10.
I thought this match was a bit better than that. I gave it a 4.5 out of 10. I mean, this was a standard, decent, old school work match. You had a clear face, you had a clear heel. You had the heel working as heel, you had a face working as face. And it worked.
Well, Chris Sabin moving on now to do whatever he's going to do in the future. Scott Hudson is now with AJ Styles, D'Lo Brown, and Roddy Piper. Hudson said the stakes don't get any higher than this. The stakes don't get any higher than a random tag team match with a mystery partner. D'Lo said he has had a lot of phone calls begging him to come back and said he would only come back if Roddy Piper was brought back. And this is what I wrote, where the good news is that they did reference their prior team and their prior feud. Piper told Mr. Watts not to worry about being fired, but Callis should be. This was almost a coherent promo by Roddy Piper.
So close to greatness here. So close.
Yes. Then we get Raven. Mm-hmm.
We have a preview package of last week with Raven, Abyss, Gathering, and the Red Shirt Security. You know what? Let's just cut to the chase with this one, if that's okay. Raven versus Abyss, we were told it was no disqualification last week, and it is no disqualification tonight.
Are you sure we were told that last week?
I think so. Just go with me on this because you said it was no DQ.
It's a Raven match, so there's going to be a whole bunch of shenanigans happening, which, like I said, this is the problem with TNA that's evolved into modern day wrestling. It's like the rules don't matter until they do. And Raven and Abyss, like, fine, Abyss is still kind of new, Raven's been wrestling for 14, 15 years at this point. He should know better. Like, if you want to do all this bullshit, you find a way to get the referee out of the way. And if you don't want to bump the referee, fine. But knowing the finish, you then have to play this straight. You can't have tables in the ring. You can't use chairs. You can't flagrantly violate the rules of pro wrestling if the finish of the match is a disqualification.
I know, it's just baffling to me.
Now, as Abyss and Raven are fighting outside there, before we get to the stupid ass finish, and by the way, it's even stupider when I tell you what the disqualification actually is. So they're outside the ring, and Mike Tenay talks about how he's worried because Abyss is unstoppable. He's unpredictable. He's a monster. He's out of control. So he's worried that Abyss might go after him. He's worried that Abyss might go after Don West. He's worried that Abyss may go after the cameraman. Seconds after he says this, Abyss fights Raven into the crowd and begins beating up Raven in front of the fans. Mike Tenay was not worried at all that Abyss would beat up the fans.
Yeah, what does he care? They paid their $10, $15. I mean, they're on the ground, so they did pay their 10 or $15.
Most of them did not. Crowd of about 650, and like 2/3 of them got in for free. So that's about 200 people actually paid their $10. Someone, and this may have been the same guy who had the WCW sign earlier, but someone held up a sign that said "Fire Bruce Arians." And I had to look this up because I know Bruce Arians would go on to lead, or to coach, lead is a strong word, to coach Tampa Bay when they won the Super Bowl a few years ago. He was the offensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns that year. And the good news for that fan is, anyway, he did get fired after the 2003 season. Of course,
bad news
like I
is,
said, not only was he the head coach of a Super Bowl winning team, but he also was the OC for Pittsburgh when they won a Super Bowl in the mid-2000s.
Two of them. Because he was still the OC when they beat the Cardinals.
Oh yeah, they played Seattle too. So
I made money off that Super Bowl, by the way, betting against Seattle.
I mean, it's where you live. Like where I live, like it would not have been smart money to bet against Pittsburgh because it was the entire fucking state was cheering for Pittsburgh. And by the way, back in the ring, a table was set up into the corner. Raven kicked out of a shock treatment, which Abyss has never won a match with, and West was shocked that somebody kicked out of it. That is another huge pet peeve of mine. I hate when that happens. When a wrestler hits a move that they never win a match with, then they don't win the match with that move, and then either they or the announcers act shocked beyond belief that they did not win with that move. That pisses me off every fucking time it happens. Raven hit a bulldog, which also has never won a match, but Legend decided that now was the time to interfere. Abyss gave Raven a spear through the table. Now, last week, a normal spear did win the match. This week, Raven kicked out at 2. Raven hit an even flow DDT, but Legend pulled the ref out. That was not the disqualification. Kevin Northcutt ran around the other side and dropped Raven. The referee didn't see it, not the disqualification. The red shirts ran into the ring. They did not touch Raven. Raven beat them up. And while Raven was beating them up, the referee disqualified Abyss for the interference. The best that I can come up with, before we get to the post-match, the best that I can come up with is that in the land of TNA, you can do whatever the fuck you want to win a match. But it has to be whatever the fuck you want to do to win the match. You cannot have people running in on your behalf and attacking the wrestlers, in an attempt to win. Now, even though I say that, I know even that's not true because interference is a staple in TNA. However, for right now, I'm going to give them half of a second here and just say that's what the rule is. That you can do whatever you want, you just can't have somebody interfere on your behalf.
But if that's the case, then Christopher Daniels shouldn't have gotten disqualified for using the chain.
It doesn't matter. The rules are stupid on this show. So Abyss gave Raven a black hole slam, and the Gathering made the save, peeling off the red shirts. Punk and Julio got more offense on them now than they did during their match earlier, and the babyfaces stood tall. After the match, Raven cut a promo saying that he's still standing despite taking the black hole slam twice. So next week, they're going to have a 6-man tag team cage match with him and the Gathering versus Red Shirt Security and Abyss. And he promises a bloodbath. Now, hopefully, that does not mean that it will drop a barrel of blood from the ceiling. 4.5 out of 10.
2.
What was that, Yelp?
A 2. I give this match a 2.
2.
The ending of the match made me so irrationally angry, and I'm still kind of angry at it. So a 2 out of 10.
All right. Now, Cyndi, do you hate yourself?
Yes.
Okay, well, I have the thing for you. If you hate yourself right now, you can go to TNA On Demand and purchase all those old TNA pay-per-views from the very beginning. They're perfect for people who hate themselves.
Yay.
Yes. Apparently, they've sold about 400 orders right now, which is, I mean, I guess it's money in their pocket, but again, 400 people are paying to watch that crap from the beginning, or that crap from the middle, or that crap later on in TNA. So next week, Low Key versus Michael Shane for the X Division title. We go backstage with Scott Hudson, now with Don Callis, who said that if Raven loses next week, then all of his dreams will be over. And the problem is he does not elaborate as to what that means. I assumed that meant something to the effect that Raven will never get another title shot if he loses. But that was not actually said. Yeah. So it's me just making up a stipulation in my head here now. Callis blames Watts and Goldilocks for Piper being here, implying that Goldilocks is sleeping with the board members. Oh, well. Any thoughts on this Don Callis promo, our last appearance of Scott Hudson on the show this week?
Not really. At least Don Callis does what he does best. That's cut a pretty damn good promo.
So Jeff Jarrett comes out to the ring for his main event tag team match. And with him is, drumroll please, Kid Cash. So it is Jeff Jarrett and Kid Cash with Don Callis versus AJ Styles and D'Lo Brown with Roddy Piper. Kid Cash did a very high springboard off the top rope. How high, you ask? So high that the spot was that AJ and D'Lo would drop kick him out of midair, and they got hops on that drop kick.
Oh, and yeah,
they drop kick Cash in the knee. That's how high Kid Cash got on that springboard. Jarrett and D'Lo had the Jeff Jarrett main event of fighting throughout the crowd, so the fans were more or less ignoring AJ and Cash wrestling in the ring. Shock of all shocks, everyone got back in the ring and we broke down into a tag team match. D'Lo was building momentum near the ropes when Jarrett kicked him in the back of the head, which caused D'Lo to fall on his ass, which is not the normal reaction to being kicked in the back of the head. Anyway, that was done because Cash needed to do his springboard flipping dropkick thingy, and this one actually hit the person in the chest, as opposed to in the balls like he normally kicks people.
Yeah.
The match breaks down into a 4-way, and like the tag title match earlier, It does not matter who the legal men were. The finish saw Piper hit Cash with the NWA flagpole that he had, and Styles pinned him with a middle rope Styles Clash. After the match, Jarrett yelled at Callis because, it's apparently his fault. I gave the match a 6.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 7 out of 10. I actually like this match quite much.
After the faces left, Jarrett and Cash were arguing about losing, and Cash told him what Piper did. This brought out Eric Watts, who was standing in the crowd. Watts said that Jarrett is going to hell. And next week, Jarrett will defend the NWA title. Jarrett said he is not defending the NWA title and is definitely not defending the NWA title against AJ Styles or D'Lo Brown. Watts said Jarrett is defending the title and is going to be facing Sting. And the crowd, who has now seen Sting half a dozen times, cared but didn't really care. And Jeff Jarrett did not care, and this was the best part. He just blew off, his match. He did not care that he was wrestling Sting. He only cared if he had to defend the title. So the big hook for next week is that Jarrett's going to wrestle Sting, but is the title on the line? We don't know. We'll have to find out next week. So Jarrett goes into the crowd and begins fighting with Watts. Cash came over to help. The show ended with Jarrett thwacking Watts with a chair. And this match with Sting is, in fact, the last of the 4-match contract that Sting has with TNA.
And he won't return until, I'm going to say January 2006.
Doesn't he come back? Isn't he a referee for, like a fucking 4-way or something in a few months?
I don't think so.
We'll see. I could swear he comes back as a referee. So that brings us to the end of the show. And this was certainly a show. Match quality this week, 4.21. Overall enjoyment. I did have to drop it down a peg from what I did originally have it in because, that Raven Abyss finish just pissed me off.
Yep.
Overall enjoyment, 5.5 out of 10. The show definitely needs some tweaking, but the shows continue to be more good than bad in the post-Russo era. They flow better, and by the time I'm ready to be done with this show, it's time for the main event. And typically under a Vince Russo show, I'm done with the show by about 30 minutes in. So, hey, I'm watching the show in one sitting a lot of the time, and that's more than I can say about Russo. Future build, 5.0 out of 10. I mean, it's the 4th time we saw Sting, and at least the 2nd time we're getting Raven, Punk, and Julio together after Raven told them never again. So in some ways, next week feels like a rerun. But it gives us an overall rating this week of a 4.90.
It's a pretty good score. Next week's build, I think it's all right, but it's also the last show of the year. We'll have a couple of recap shows, which is the best 2003 and whatnot. And also, we're starting to get votes in for Mr. and Miss TNA 2003.
Geez, that Miss TNA category. I don't know about that one, I don't know if all 2 women in this company, one of them could possibly win this one.
Oh, no, Bruce might come back and shock the world.
He is the shock master. Oh, he fell on his arse. He fell on his arse.
He fucking fell on his arse.
All right. So, yeah, we only got one more episode left for this year. December 17th next week. Jarrett versus Sting, a 6-man tag team cage match. It is certainly going to be it'll be a happening.
And Low-Ki versus Michael Shane.
Low-Ki versus Michael Shane. And we are on the build to Ultimate X 2 on January 7th.
So we're going to have a big happening on the first show of 2004, which is good.
Yes, it is indeed a happening. All right, so that is going to do it for this week. Before we wrap it up, do you have anything you want to say to the listener?
Take care of your body.
Sounds good. Thank you all for listening. Hope you all enjoyed the show. We'll talk again in 7 days.
I like turtles, the candy, and the animal.